Hi, my name's Catherine from Crime Psych. In this video, I want to talk about knife crime in the United Kingdom. As you're no doubt aware, there has been a dramatic increase in knife crime in the UK over the past few years. In the 12 months prior to March 2019, there were over 43,000 offences recorded that involved the use of a knife. It makes sense that when there's a major problem with knife crime in major cities, more people in one place means more people committing the crimes. And this is something that I personally worry about on a daily basis because I've got a 16-year-old son. Every time he goes out with his friends, I'm aware that there's a possibility of him being stabbed. I know that many parents feel the same way. There are news stories every day about people being stabbed and either seriously injured or killed. There are many different views as to why this is the case, and so I'm going to be discussing some of those views with you in this video. There seems to be quite a big difference in views between academics, police officers, other officials, the media, residents, parents and families, and young people when it comes to knife crime. I'll start with my own son, who was 15 at the time when I had this conversation with him. I had told him that I didn't want him walking around the streets after dark with his friends because there was a danger of getting involved in a fight or some kind of an argument and somebody pulling a knife on one of them and stabbing them. His immediate response was, "No, there isn't. We're not like that. We just walk around. We're not going to get involved." I asked him why he thought there'd been an increase in knife crime in our area and why he thought that he was in less danger than others. His response was very typical for a young person and was along the lines of, "It'll never happen to me." This conversation took place shortly after a 17-year-old boy from our local community had been tragically killed following an altercation at a party. My son went on to say that he thought people didn't just go around stabbing people who they didn't know. He said that there was usually some form of ongoing dispute that leads to the fight, and that most of the time both parties had a role to play in that argument and subsequent stabbing. I know that some people will be recoiling in horror listening to this, especially if you're a family member of a victim. However, do keep in mind that this was coming from a 15-year-old naive young man. It is true that sometimes there will be a lead up to stabbings, such as threats made on both parts and some form of escalation of violence. Many stabbings can be a result of gang-related activities. However, that doesn't always mean that this is always the case. We know that there have been several cases where the perpetrator and the victim are complete strangers. People are being stabbed as part of stranger altercations in pubs, in clubs. People are being robbed in the street at knife point. People are being stabbed because the perpetrator doesn't like the way the other person looks or because they're different in some way. We have a vast range of factors to consider when we want to examine the causes of knife crime. As I have just said, people are being stabbed for numerous reasons, which can include gang involvement, it can include robbery, or as part of violence in general, and sometimes it can be just for being different. So it's extremely difficult to come up with one universal explanation or reason of why knife crime is increasing, and as such, what we should be doing to decrease this. However, I talk to general people within the community about crime, and they tell me that they think knife crime has increased because of police funding cuts. People have reported being threatened to the police, and the police have told them that there's nothing that they can do. People are even recording that a particular person has said that they intend to go and stab somebody. However, when the police are informed of this, the police tell them that there's no crime been committed yet, and so there's nothing that they can do about it. We know that the police have suffered severe funding shortages and cutbacks. It's extremely unusual to see a police officer walking around the neighbourhood anymore. Some members of the community automatically assume that if they see a group of young people, especially young boys, that they must be up to no good. They're treated as outcasts that nobody wants around because of the trouble that they cause. When there's a group of young people, some people tend to avoid them or to feel unsafe. They blame the parents. There's no respect anymore, they tell me. The parents didn't teach them anything about right from wrong. Their parents are probably doing drugs or are in prison themselves. The parents don't discipline their children enough. But this is a hugely damaging attitude for people to have, because if young people feel like they are a problem and not valued within community, and they're only good for going out and causing trouble, they have nowhere else to go because there's no cheap social spaces that they can hang out, they are constantly targeted. How do you think that this will affect their self-esteem? And how do you think this will affect their resulting behaviour? Attitudes such as this will lead to the police being called out when groups of young people are socialising in spaces, public spaces. Sometimes they might be noisy or arguing or shouting or even playing loud music. The police will attend and they'll question the young people, who then feel oppressed by this contact and feel that it was very unjustified. The police will move the young people on, and because services are overstretched, they need to do this as quickly as possible, which might lead to the use of force where it's necessary. But this will lead to our young people having a negative attitude towards the police. They will no longer see the police as somebody who is there to help, but as part of an oppressive society. The police don't have the time or the resources to engage with the community in any sort of meaningful way and change those attitudes. Theresa May denied that reducing police officer numbers is fueling the national rise in knife crime. The government have launched several programmes in an attempt to reduce crime. They've used advertisement campaigns showing the impact of knife crime. They have given the police more powers of stop and search. They've also brought in restrictions on age and buying knives, as well as the introduction of rounded edged knives in certain contexts and situations. But knives are an easily accessible weapon which can easily kill. The pointed edge of a knife can easily pierce major organs, which makes these lethal attacks. However, when you give some in-depth thought as to whether or not knife availability can be a cause of the increase in knife crime, you come across some issues. We, as humans, have been using pointy objects since caveman ages. Knives in their modern form have been available for many, many years. Therefore, this availability cannot account for the increase in knife crime alone. One of the possible attributing factors to the increase is attitude. There's a lot of media attention given to the problem of knife crime and fatal stabbings, and this may lead to fear within the younger generation. They may have the perception that everybody is carrying a knife. Therefore, they think if everybody else is carrying a knife, I best carry a knife, because if I'm attacked, I'll need to protect myself. And so they go out with a concealed knife on them. Young people have always and will always be involved in some level of violence or unruly behaviour. However, when this occurs and a knife is immediately available, it can lead to a fatality. When that young person put their knife in their pocket, they had no intention of ever using it. However, when they were confronted, they became scared and used their knife first out of fear. I have searched many academic articles in search of some sort of an explanation for the increase in knife crime. I searched articles for a few days and the majority of these articles were on gangs and knife crime. And this suggests that the academics researching this have the mindset that then leads them to believe that the increase in knife crime is mainly gang related. Whilst gang members are using knives more, the increase in knife crime overall is not exclusive to gangs. Unless, of course, you want to start calling groups of 5 or 10 young people who have nowhere else to go and so are going to the local park a gang. I have looked at all of these groups of individuals and gave extensive thought as to why there had been such different explanations or thoughts on why knife crime has increased. Each group does have some validity on what they're thinking or suggesting. However, the explanation, and as such any kind of solution, is going to have to be multifaceted. Over the next few videos that I release, I'm going to be discussing some of my personal thoughts as to why there has been an increase in knife crime, as well as some proven methods, programs and intervention that have been proven to reduce serious violent crime. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I do hope that you find it interesting and learn something. I hope to see you on the next video for my thoughts as to why there's been an increase in knife crime. Bye for now.